So, Babylon 5, Legend of the Rangers, you've probably never heard of it. Yeah? Fair comment? Fair enough. It's not my favourite entry in the Babylon 5 pantheon, it has to be said. And in fact, I haven't watched it for years and years and years. And I'm watching it in parts that you don't have to, possibly. I think I've actually accidentally put this in the wrong place in terms of my ordering of the series, because I've just been checking, and Legend of the Rangers was very nearly the last bit of original Babylon 5 produced. And it was produced in 2002. It came out in 2002, which means that it came out well after Babylon 5 Crusade aired. Now, this was the last of the only spin-off series that actually got off the ground. It was intended that Legend of the Rangers would have been a spin-off series as well. It didn't gain traction. But the reason I say I've done it in slightly in the wrong order is that A Call to Arms, which was the TV movie that preceded Crusade, actually comes chronologically after Legend of the Rangers, which I for some reason in my head Legend of the Rangers was more set in the future, but in fact it's 2265. Then Crusade is now let me just double check this to get this right, because I can't quite make it stick in my head for some reason. So A Call to Arms is set in, wait for it, 2266, and then Crusade is 2267. So I thought Legend of the Rangers was kind of at the same time as or after Crusade, but it isn't. Which makes it all the more strange, actually, in a sense, because it means that it crosses over with, or would have crossed over with, Crusade's timeline if it had kept going. So what we then get as a result is a show that has better graphics than Crusade and A Call to Arms, but is actually set before those stories in the chronology of Babylon 5. So the thing is that because it didn't make it, it's literally just got this TV movie and that's it. But it was intended to be a new story, a new show in effect, but a new spin-off. The problem therefore is it only has one of our normal recurring characters in it, because it started that much later. It was intended to have a cast who we weren't actually that familiar with. So as a result, if you saw it as a standalone, you might not immediately have called it as being set in the Babylon 5 universe. It could be, don't take this the wrong way, but it could be any sci-fi channel, one-off TV film, unfortunately. There is one character whose presence you will immediately recognise, and that is Jakar. And as I run through it, I can explain what's obviously, it'll become obvious why he's in it. But otherwise, it's quite detached from the main arc of the Babylon 5 series, even though it's within Babylon 5's lifetime. So it just takes this rather different sort of approach. I don't recall being a great fan of it at the time. I appreciated the fact that it was in the Babylon 5 universe. I was, cheerleading from the sidelines for it as much as anyone else was, in terms of it trying to perpetuate Babylon 5 as an ongoing franchise, if you like. But it just didn't happen. So there is one more show that came out after it, which was set chronologically after everything else in the Babylon 5 universe to that point as well, and that's the Lost Tales. And I will cover them in due course, but I've got to get through Crusade first. And this Crusade is sealed. It's mint in its box. Because I literally have not watched Crusade for so very, very long. I definitely watched it when it first came out. Knowing me, I probably recorded episodes off Channel 4 at godforsaken hours on long play VHS tapes, because that's what I did. But I will come to Crusade another time. I know it's been a while since I've done a Babylon 5 video. I can only apologise for that. I had intended to start reading through the novels, and I have started, but I just haven't been able to gain traction for one reason and another. And I've been sort of looking at more at my sort of retro toys, vintage toys kind of videos in the meantime. So I am going to try and return to Crusade and do those episodically. But for now, we're going to have a look at The Legend of the Rangers. Welcome to Babblecom 5. Okay, I think I'm just going to record live for this one rather than doing a scripted thing like I normally do, and then I'll just edit it all down at the end for you. Let's play movie. Even the intro text is quite odd. And we're into a space battle. People getting electrocuted. It's not good. So David is the second in command of this ship that's under attack, but this isn't the ship he ends up with in the series. And they're sort of quoting the live for the one, we die for the one code of the Rangers. Getting swarmed by raiders. They're getting properly swarmed. The graphics are quite weird. I think it's a Minbari ship they've got, but we see a lot of different Minbari ships in this series. The captain's had it. So they've still got engines, but not really weapons to speak of. Minbari is called. So interestingly, the captain's deciding not to go after them when the Ranger Code says that he should. But he's saying that they shouldn't die stupidly. It sounds like Christopher Franke, and yet it also doesn't. We stand on the bridge and no one may pass. It's very Lord of the Rings. The intro to it gives away quite a lot of the action that you see later. It's just not got the same tone about it. It's really odd. Orange Quantum-class cruiser there coming out from Minbar, which is interesting. The graphics are pretty. I mean, fair dues. Ah, that's interesting. So it's actually called To Live and Die in Starlight. So it's like a proper pilot episode. So Dylan Neal is David Martell. He's a human we just saw. Alex Zahara. Miriam Siwa. Mackenzie Gray. And here's Andreas Kitsoulas as Jakar, of course. So the Minbari don't know who these mysterious ships are that are being shown in the background in the tactical display here. He's saying they appear to have awakened one of the mysteries of space. Now they're expanding the alliance. They're covering a larger amount of territory, so they're coming across more unknown things. And it's interesting that Jakar's back, because this means he's back from his walkabout with Lita. So he's asking Jakar to go and investigate this new race, basically, in his typically subtle fashion. David is now going to get punished for choosing to stay alive, when in fact he should have died, basically. It's got some good gags, though, fair dues. And incidentally, this isn't Sheridan's David. This is a completely different David, because Sheridan's David would be a teeny tiny child at this point. This chap's called Tanier. He's not David's bestest mate, it seems. The weapons officer is called Sarah. And now it's on because he's been called out. Basically, he's been called a coward by this Minbari, so now they're having a good old Matrix-style fighting pike-off. Because the Minbari is lost. It's a great big Minbari ship. In fact, I'm not sure if it's a hybrid of Earth and Minbari, this one. It's called the Valen. It's going to be Tanir's ship now rather than David's. It's interesting, likening the Anna shock to King Arthur and his knights. Their ship's going to be called the Leandra. It's alleged that she's a little bit cursed because the last crew died on board her. Took them a week to find the ship. Yeah, they're calling the Valiant a flying brick, which is a bit harsh, but they do also point out it doesn't need to be aerodynamic to work in space, of course. He's getting the full-on leadership council trial. Or perhaps not. Perhaps it's not the Grey Council. Yep, it's Grey Council. So Julian is offering up himself and his other crewmates and basically saying they'll leave if David's expelled. So not breaking away from combat is apparently a principle of the Rangers now. Just as they're about to kick him out, Jakar makes an appearance. And he points out to him that he did say that he should consider any closed door open. And Jakar being Jakar, he's pointing out that although you're supposed to live for the one and die for the one, why is dying for the one more important than living for the one? So Jakar's now saying he's had a word with President Sheridan about the situation. Jakar is saying to David to accept the miracle and move on because he's managed to keep him in the analyst shock and he's got a ship for him. And he's getting the Leandra, of course. Considering we're on Minbar, the maintenance drones look a lot like B5 maintenance drones, which are Earth-based, one assumes. Yeah, apparently the Leandra is 20 years old and has had the stuffing kicked out of it several times at this point. And clearly half its systems are glitchy as all hell. Interesting, we're now getting holographic interfaces. Actually, we've seen view screens that are holographic before, actually, but maybe not interfaces so much. The bridge is in fairly beaten up shape as well. So the Minbari second in command is, if not telepathic, he's definitely sensitive. He's described as sensitive by the Grey Council. The strange thing is, you'd have thought there'd been a White Star spare for David, if nothing else, rather than an older Minbari ship. It turns out the Leandra is going to escort the Valen. Which is curious, given the captains don't like each other very much. As the maintenance pods have got human numbers on them as well. They are on Minbar after all. It's interesting, they're noting that the Analyst Shock tend to crew their ships with Earth and Minbari. There's a certain antipathy towards using Drazi and other members of the Analyst Shock, because they're the newest entrants, I suppose. Your name, your place, your truth. Sarah Cantrell of Mars. Weapons and tactical. Live to serve, serve to live. Critique of Minbar. First contact specialist. Comes to the stars by a difficult road. Guitarist Taki, navigations and comms basically. Farrell of Minbar, a healer. Malcolm Bridges, covert ops. The Field of Nar, she's the engineer basically. Turk Drasi, I carry very large things, bless him. Dulan's first officer. David Martell, no place in particular. Shockner, Captain. And he's looking for something, but we're not told what. And this star symbol will now rest in the centre of the ship whilst they man it. This is the ambassador's various of boarding the Valen. And the Landry can't even get off the ground because their engines don't work, apparently. Nice. Nafeel is clearly having a raging battle with her engine room. They would try to stall for time, but didn't do a very good job of it. Because Tanir's Minbari, he doesn't really do stalling. Ooh, now they're going all Klingon on us and saying today's a good day to die. Bit of a crossover there. Of course, the Valen's just popping off the ground. It's got bizarre landing feet. It's a chunky monkey. Well, they're hitting it. Given that Minbari ships have normally got gravitic drive systems, there's a lot of engine exhaust coming out from the bottom ports. It's got duck feet for landing pads. And David is 30 credits up. Thanks, Sarah. Oh, it's that new jump gate. Oh, it's not even the right colour. It's grey. That's wrong, wrong. A little bit of a glimpse of the enemies of the day. They're near Beta Durrani 7. About to jump into normal space. The destination's been kept secret to this point for security, even from the diplomats. So it's the site of an archaeological dig under a domed colony. So they're positing that they're bringing the ambassadors to see something that they couldn't transport otherwise. Please make the jump points blue. No, it's still grey swirly masses. That's wrong. Oh dear. And the bad guys can make their own energy point, their own jump points. Which implies capital ship class. And here we go. It's the silly weapons, bouncy, athletic, optical targeting enabled. She literally has to punch and stuff to fire her weapon systems. It's a bit bizarre. Baddies blew up the colony. That's not ideal. Now they're pummeling the Valen. Problem is it's 3-on-2 and the Valen is an enormous target. And the Andrew's just taking a heavy hit. It's interesting, 2 of the enemy ships now leave, leaving just 1 behind to apparently to finish the job. He's jetting the escape pods. So Tanir is going to take the Velen on a suicide run in a Sheridan-style ramming speed manoeuvre. So he's taking the dive the one option, basically. I assume that's like a holographic room that she's in, because it can't be that big enough for a ship to have a huge... So now Leandra's on a escape pod collection mission. So we've now got a half-crippled ship that can't jump into hyperspace, can't communicate faster than light, and is basically not much good for anything. Super. And when the enemy ship doesn't report back, they're going to have 2 enemy ships back on them. Ah, diplomats. Such fun. The guy's saying they've got a number of very nice hallways and closets, and absolutely 0 first-class accommodation, of course. And Jakar's been rescued. He can sense that he's not in hyperspace, which telepaths often can. He feels that the previous crew are still on board in a sort of spiritual sense, that something's disturbing them. The friends are back. It's weird, the graphics are very sort of... They're very, very quick. I think I preferred it when they were slower. Maybe I'm just old. It's always possible. Dead guy alert. He needs a good dentist. So there's definitely a major subplot happening with the previous crew, but I don't know how resolved it gets just in this one sort of pilot episode. Jakar's definitely inherited some human traits, I think, in his travels with Lita. Which Adrazi then comments on. It's quite interesting because Dave's actually asking Jakar for military help, because he knows his history. It's the old Swedish meatballs gag comes into it as Dave is asking Jakar what he knows about this mysterious race. It's also referring to the history of the shadows. So apparently a million years ago this race drove off another race into possibly a parallel dimension or something similar, and the pyramid is a gateway to that area, which is interesting. Guy with a, I can't remember what the official term for it is, like a chameleon system, pretending to be Jakar, bumping into Jakar. Hollow suit. So we have a non-Shadows ancient enemy that was driven off but has now returned, basically. David's thinking they can run, fight or hide, and the only option he has is hide. And if they open fire, the enemy can see the energy spike and find them. As it is, the ambient radiation in the system is effectively cloaking them. But they're going to have to be very, very careful. Yeah, it's not really the best place to hide when you're in bad shape and have no shields. Quite a big normal crew on board. She's trying to debate whether or not to take Well, not to say the shot. They've now decided they can't afford to stay in the tail any longer because they're starting to depressurise. They've got to leg it. And only now can they scan for the enemy ships. And Jordan's going to walk about. The actual sort of makeup is pretty much sort of bob on. Jakar seems a little bit different, but it's not so much as you'd really sort of call it out as being wrong as such. So there is that. So this is quite unusual in the sense that it's we're not used to Babylon 5 being based on ships quite so much. You know, normally these sets are a bit more expansive than this. This is a bit different. So maybe they're just not quite used to sort of shooting in this style. I don't even know if it was the original production crew who were as heavily involved with this one, because it was quite a number of years after it finished its original filming. So Land's now seeing a lot of the original crew. There's a lot of ghosts on board. Ooh, asking them what they want. It's a very Morden-esque question. So Dulan is now confirmed as a weak telepath, but the Minbari is sensitive to death, so they're like soul hunters, I suppose, in a sense, ironically. Because if Leandra's got a fairly big crew complement, it means the Valens had a huge crew complement. They effectively went down with all hands. And yet the escape pods look quite big compared to the Valen, which is odd. So Jolan is saying that the previous crew were betrayed. And he's saying to check the records because they feel the ghosts feel that the same thing's happening here now. So they found one encrypted record with the password Entil Zar, Ranger 1. So the hologram guy is basically saying that whoever survived the original crew is the one who betrayed them, which makes perfect sense. So now they're looking for a traitor on board, which means it's somebody they probably picked up. It's not the same guy, but it's a traitor, not the same traitor. And this is the conversation he had with Jakar, because they avoided hitting the weapons which would destroy the ship. They targeted the engines which are heavily shielded in order to not destroy the ship, which means they were trying to preserve the ship. So now they figured out there could have been a mole on board the Valen who signalled the enemy to pinpoint their location. And the big Drazi has found one of the ambassadors where they shouldn't be. The ambassador's a good shot. He's messing with the high power port, presuming to call in his friends again. Now Cargo A4 is emitting the same signal that came from the Valen originally at the time of the attack. I love that there's all the doors are labelled with things like bridge and gunnery in English, even though it's a Minbari ship. It's not even bilingual. David spotted the traitorous ambassador. The ambassador's stronger than he looks. Even the escape pods are labelled. Brilliant. Company's coming. So they're up to 30% weapons, 80% engines. It's interesting, the ship can't hit them at this range. Its energy weapons power tails off, but now they've launched a big ball of something at them instead. They're mines. Sarah's getting busy again. I'm not entirely sure where the weapons ports are, because she seems to have quite a good 360-degree coverage. It is a bit silly. Well, they've got countermeasures, now they're launching them? Okay. This ship is looking more and more like Swiss cheese. But now they're doing the old launch the escape pod that they thought was coming because the ambassador was trying to reach it before, but put a bomb inside it. And make it a nasty surprise for the enemy ship. It's a very wibbly-wobbly looking ship. Stop saying stand by and blow the thing up. I wouldn't even have waited that long if I were him, because the ship could have shielded it from the detonation signal. But anyway. So now they've got 0 weapons and some engines, and that's it. There's only one enemy ship left. Loving the porcupine guy's head. We've never seen this alien race before. So apparently his race is new to the Alliance, and none of their ships have been bothered. And they're just on the periphery of the Alliance territory. So David thinks that their race made a deal with these new people. So David's going to have to apply a bit of physical pressure because the Sherlockian Holmes effort isn't achieving him anything. It's apparently called the Hand of God, the Hand of Death. No proper name. So apparently the ships that are chasing them aren't actually hand ships. They're just toys given to people who are allied with the Hand. Like his race. So he's comparing the shadows as being insects as compared to the power of the Hand. So he's basically saying the only chance they've got is to join them. Otherwise you'll be ground into dust. Yes, she's just noticed that there's a little bit of a blockage at the jump gate. Mexican standoff. I just activate the jump gate, it might take the other ship out. Mysterious hooded figure is speaking remarkably good English. And there's really sort of nice Christopher Franke little sort of tinkle in the background as well, which is clever. So basically it's just a standoff because they quite like the guy back, but equally they will destroy the Leandria if they can't get him back, and they don't want to negotiate. So it's a standoff until one of them decides to do something about it. Toulon is remarkably well informed, apparently by his ghosts. Enlightenment. Clever. So if he's got nothing left to use, he should use nothing. Or nothing new. Clever boy. Yeah. Well, they're quite a smart enemy because they are going to check for booby traps and so on this time. And lo and behold, the enemy have exactly what they wanted. Also, they think. Boom! Ivanova would appreciate it. You open the hatch of the escape pod, and the grenades get their pin pulled. And everyone's wondering, how did he do that? So apparently his plan was inspired by Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is several centuries out of his time zone. But anyway, so basically they kept the pod in a straight line with them and the enemy ship and beamed a holographic version of the ambassador to their ship. And Bob's your uncle, grenades go boom and ship goes boom and all is well with the world. It's quite interesting because David's very humble about what happened. He didn't see it as a massive victory on his part. He just did what he had to do in the circumstances of what he had. But Jakar's saying that's all we can ever do. And the Great Council seems to do nothing but debrief random rangers these days. Apparently Turk and Dulan will make recoveries. So the Leandra remains their ship, but it's going to be better prepared, hopefully, than the last time when they took her up. It's interesting because now there's a reference to Jakar and Lita. Jakar's getting a lift from the Leandra. I still hate these jump points. There's no reason they should have different jump points to the original series. So they've arrived at Babylon 5 to drop Jakar off, which I'd completely forgotten. So that's nice. And Jakar cautions that if they ever do go aboard, be aware that no one there is exactly what they seem. Yes, there we are. I have to say, it wasn't actually anywhere near as bad as I remembered it being, strangely. I didn't like certain elements of it, certainly, but it really wasn't all that bad at all, and I could see the characters growing on me had they been given the chance to do so, but of course they didn't, sadly. But yeah, it probably would have done alright for itself, I think. But you know, it was even more short-lived than Crusade was, unfortunately. So that's the end of that for Babylon 5 at that point. But at the time of recording, of course, you know, there are still rumours abounding about what might happen with the series going forward. So we'll just have to see. But that was Babylon 5, The Legend of the Rangers. Cheers for now.